It's a pleasure to welcome retired Admiral Sandy Winnefeld to the Cipher Brief studio. Admiral Winnefeld served as the former vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and spent decades in military service. It's so nice to see you, Sandy. Thank you for being here.
It's nice to be back with you, Suzanne, and I look forward to our conversation.
You know, the president started talking last week about his desire to build an iron dome to protect the United States. It's not the first time that something like that's been discussed, but what does that mean to you? Can you just kind of unpack it for us?
Sure. He uses the term Iron Dome for America, and when most people think of Iron Dome, they think about what Israel has done in cooperation with the U.S. industry to protect themselves from rocket attacks from Hezbollah, Hamas, and the like. This is not that. It's really a metaphor, and I'm reminded of take Trump seriously, but not literally. He doesn't mean the Iron Dome system. What he means is a system to protect the United States from ballistic missile attacks, cruise missile attacks, hypersonic missile attacks, and that's a pretty ambitious project. But as a former NORTHCOM commander, I'm sort of happy to see it get a little more attention than it's been getting.
Yeah, because the threats are real. And even though they're not in the headlines every day, in your old job, it's something you probably did think about, maybe not on a daily basis, but close to it. Talk to me a little bit about the threats that you see today and what this dome, however it might be constructed, and I'd love to talk about some of the challenges in doing that, but what is it intended to defend against?
Yeah, there's a sort of a multi population of threats that are out there. Obviously, there's the classic intercontinental ballistic missile threat, which is what Ronald Reagan was thinking about when he put together what was known as the Star Wars system. That's a very difficult threat to defeat, particularly if it comes from a very sophisticated adversary like Russia, because there are all kinds of penetration aids and the like, and just sheer mass. Very, very hard to defend against that. So what it evolved into was the ground-based interceptor program, that is our current missile defense program, was intended to be used against Iranian or North Korean threats, or an accidental launch from Russia, something along those lines. It just didn't have the capacity to handle a massive ICBM attack from Russia. So ICBMs are one. Obviously, hypersonic missiles are something that has been in the news quite a lot. They're very difficult to counter. They're hard to see. They can maneuver. They're very fast. And so there's a big effort involved in trying to take those on, something called the Glide Phase Interceptor Program, which is just now starting up. And then there are sort of the potential rogue threats you hear, like a container on a merchant ship off the coast with more of an intermediate range ballistic missile, a short range ballistic missile. You also worry about that same class of threats for instance, Guam in the Western Pacific, which they're easier to shoot down, but they're more proliferated. So a wide range of threats that require different solutions to counter them.
The future of national security is here. Introducing the Cipher Brief's NatSec Edge Conference, June 5th through 6th, 2025 in Austin, Texas. Join leaders from intelligence, defense, private industry, and investment as they explore the innovations shaping tomorrow's world. Gain critical insights, connect with top minds, and shape the future of security in an interconnected world. Don't just witness the future, be a part of it. Secure your spot now at natsekedge.com.
Let's talk about Guam for just a minute, because I feel like there might be lessons to learn from the situation in Guam in trying to protect it. And this is, obviously an island in the Pacific. What are some of the challenges that have come to light in just trying to protect Guam?
Well, obviously North Korea poses a threat. China poses a threat to Guam. We have a lot of U.S. forces based there, so it's a prime target for an adversary that wants to, preemptively attack us. I take a little bit of satisfaction in this because when I was vice chairman, I sort of asked the question of, we have all these THAAD interceptors and they're based in Texas. Are we trying to defend ourselves from, Mexican ballistic missile attacks? Of course we aren't. And they are deployable around the world. So why don't we base at least one of them in a place where it could be deployed from, but where it could actually defend something? So we sent one to Guam. Army wasn't very happy about that initially. And it's been there for almost 10 years. And so, which was a good start. And I think it alarmed the Chinese a little bit. And as you know, now we're, I believe, building the Aegis Ashore system in Guam. So we are beefing up the defenses for that. But it is, if somebody wants to launch a massed attack, as we saw Iran launch against Israel, it can be challenging to take it out. But those are very capable systems that we're putting in there, THAAD and the SM-3.
Mhm. If you're building something like this for the entire United States, it's difficult for all of us, I think, to get our heads around that. But you've got issues of cost, you've got issues of supply chain, you've got what kind of timeline to consider. How are you thinking about those aspects of this?
Well, you're right. It's a massive area to defend if you want to try to defend the whole thing. And clearly, we're going to have to make choices on critical infrastructure. The national capital region, New York City, major metropolitan areas, major defense areas, potentially nuclear power plants, that sort of thing. And it's going to be very hard to defend all of that. But but that doesn't mean you should defend none of that. So we got to make some choices. The supply chain is hard. Industry is taking a lot of hits in the news these days because we just can't come up with we can't build things fast enough. And it's really important to remember that industry sizes itself for what the government asks it to do. It's not going to put out extra assembly lines out there and a massive supply chain if there's no possibility that someone's going to buy what's produced there. So there is a bit of lag time, but with multi-year contracts, which is what gives industry the confidence it needs in order to put together large supply lines with the people involved, with the supply chain involved. That is where you have to go here if you're going to be serious about stepping up the sizing of this thing.
So this means absolute engagement with the defense-based industries, the traditional government partners in putting together something like this. There's no quick and fast way around that.
And right now, Suzanne, the biggest bottleneck for us all, anybody in the industry who's doing this, is rocket motors. Our industrial base for rocket motors is not healthy right now, and steps are being taken to try to fix that. But it really is the biggest bottleneck we've got.
And is that also a supply chain issue?
It's a supplier and a supply chain issue, and I don't want to pick on any one company, but the people who are making rocket motors, these are sort of almost mom and pop outfits. Think of Home Depot orange buckets with people hand stirring their propellant, and it's very amazing science and engineering that it takes to put these fuels together, to machine them properly so they're safe and that they actually do their job. It's surprisingly difficult to do.
That is really interesting, something I did not know. Anything else that you're thinking about in terms of what's possible and what may be a little bit out of reach when it comes to this concept of building this Iron Dome?
Yeah, there are a couple of things out there. First of all, we have to make sure we pay attention to the detection side of this. Some of these threats are very, very hard to see using traditional infrared, something like a cruise missile launched from the sea or a hypersonic threat. So there are efforts going on. Space Development Agency is doing, proliferated warfighter piece. We need to accelerate those so that you can't shoot something if you can't see it. The more traditional ICBM and MRBM threats, we have radars that can generally see those in time, as we saw with the defense of Israel. But those other emerging threats, the hypersonics and the like, are tougher. So that's point one, is to get the detection piece there. Another one is we talk a lot about directed energy, and the first thing that people think about when they hear directed energy is, oh, you mean lasers. And lasers have a problem, or several problems. One, it's very hard to get the power into them that they need in order to actually take out a seriously, the ICBM or MRBM threat. They don't like bad weather. They don't like to penetrate clouds. And they also have to dwell on the target for a certain amount of time. And I've found that it's more likely that the type of directed energy we're going to use is what I call ultra high power microwaves. There are high power microwave systems out there that can take out little drones, and there's a million little startups that are doing that. And those are important, and they're nice on the battlefield and that sort of thing. But if you're going to take out a serious ballistic missile threat, you can actually do it with ultra high power microwaves, but it takes a certain type of technology that we have, but we need to accelerate. And it's just a quick shot, and it doesn't take much electrical power to do it because it's such a short pulse that goes out there. But we really need to more fully explore that, because now you can start to take out threats at scale rather than having to hit everything with a BB. And so that's another piece. And then, there's a big vibe out there put out by some of the small startups, the sort of tech bros, that say, the defense primes are, history, they're obsolete, we're the future. And in some small areas, that's actually probably true. It's important that those people be nurtured. But this is big boy business here. It's not a little drone with some AI in it that's going to do missile defense. This is very difficult, very complex, has to be done at scale, and you need people who can produce that. So, and then finally, Suzanne, I would say we talked a little bit earlier about what we have to defend. We also have to manage our adversaries a little bit here. And one of the things I had to deal with as the NORTHCOM commander was Russian paranoia over all this, because they tend to inflate our capabilities. And if you make an SM-32 Bravo that can shoot down a missile, they're going to think that you're trying to negate their strategic deterrent. And that concerns them greatly. So that's where you see them coming up with sort of weird solutions, like an intercontinental torpedo nuclear powered, that'll go 100 knots and will devastate the east coast of the United States. So we just got to manage that. And I think without sharing any secrets with them, be more transparent with them. Even though they won't believe you, you have to be transparent with them to make sure you know what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Mm-hmm. That's a really interesting component to this too that I wouldn't have even considered. Sandy Winnefeld, thank you so much for taking the time just to chat with us a little bit and put some of this into context for us about this Iron Dome and what this could look like and what it could mean. It's always great to see you. Thank you.
What a pleasure. Nice to see you.